So in this tutorial, we're going to make some cookies, or we're going to make some cookie dough, and we're going to make a beautiful vanilla cookie dough, which is really versatile. We can use it for cookies, and then also we can do it on cookies on sticks as well. So in the bouquet, cookie bouquet that's in the book, this is the recipe as well. So there's a few key ingredients that we need, and as all these videos, the recipes will be at the end for you to know what you're going to, the quantities you're going to need. So we've got some flour, we've also got some chopped up butter that's just at room temperature, so it's almost, you can pop your finger in and it's slightly squidgy, it's not rock hard. I've also got an egg, and that egg is at room temperature, and that's a 50-gram egg. And I've also got some caster sugar, and I've got some delicious vanilla extract. Now this is not the essence, this is the actual extract from the vanilla bean, so it's a much higher quality product to use. The essence is just like a byproduct of a flavoured almost water. So we want to use the extract. Now when you purchase this is available in most supermarkets. I always give it a bit of a shake and then bring it back upside down, because what happens is all the concentrate kind of sits at the bottom, so you want to make sure it mixes, otherwise it kind of solidifies. Now with my caster sugar, I've noticed it's kind of a little bit lumpy and a bit hard. Now there's a couple of methods. I can just pop it into my mixer and mix it up, but I tend to just pop it into a slightly larger bowl, and then using the back of my spoon, I'm just going to break down that sugar, because I don't want any lumps in the cookie dough, otherwise it will crystallize and there will be burnt little pieces inside. So make sure that all the lumps and bumps are going, and then what you can do is just divide it into slightly less in the bowl, and then just use the back of the spoon and make sure that's really nice and lump free. Now I am going to use a food mixer to do this. You could just do this by hand, but it will really give you a workout. And what we're going to use on this kitchen mixer, I'm actually going to use the blade or the spade attachment. I'm not going to use the whisk or a hook. I'm also going to use a very low setting. I don't want it sort of moving too quickly. So the other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to aerate or sift my flour, because again you can see that the flour is quite lumpy. So I'm going to use a large bowl and a sieve, and I'm going to pop probably about a quarter of that flour. Now hopefully this won't go everywhere. No, it's not going too far. And I'm just going to, any little bumpy bits, I'm just going to rub my hands through and get that really lump free. So sometimes I just move my hands, or sometimes I keep my hands still and just tap it. We want to not do it up high, otherwise it goes everywhere. We want to keep it low. So just a little bit more. And the reason why I aerate my flour is because sometimes you don't know how long it's been manufactured and stored. Sometimes we have little extras in the flour, so we want to make sure there's nothing nasty in the flour. So I always aerate my flour. Okay, so I've got my flour, I've got my butter, I've got my caster sugar, and I'm going to use my vanilla extract, and I've got one 50-gram egg. I'm just going to crack that. I'm going to do it in a glass dish so I can check that there's no shell. And you want to make sure that there's no shell in the dish, so that's why I like the glass bowl, because you can kind of see if there is any. And then just use a fork and just lightly beat that up. Okay. Now make sure your bowl is nice and clean. I know you will, but we want to just make sure that's nice and clean. And then what I do is I normally pop my sugar in first rather than the butter in first, because what that does then, it stops all the butter from sticking at the bottom of the bowl. So I'm going to pop the caster sugar in. So now we're going to add the butter. So the butter basically is incorporated better than having it in the bottom of the mixing bowl. So scrape all that butter off, and then I'm just going to pop my attachment in. I'm going to release the arm down, and I'm just going to turn it onto a low mix. And I'm probably going to mix just for a couple of minutes, because what I want to do is I want to cream the butter and the sugar together. And sometimes I'll stop the machine and give it a good scrape down. Today it's quite warm, and the butter's sort of not over sticking to the sides. So I'm just going to switch it off, lift it up, and then using my scraper, I'm going to just push all the butter and sugar off there. And I'm just going to mix all the way down. And you can see, because I've put the sugar in at the bottom, can you see that all that butter hasn't stuck to the bowl? So I'm just going to stir this again. The butter I am using is salted butter. Again, you don't need to use unsalted butter because that pinch of that salt that's in the butter gives the cookies a beautiful flavour. So you can see now that the butter and the sugar has been mixed quite lovely. And I'm just going to turn it up a little bit more, just to make it a little bit more fluffier. And it will actually go a little bit whiter in the colour. So I'm going to switch this off now, and I'm going to just scrape all this yumminess down. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to add my eggs. And I'm going to add all the not eggs, all at once. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. So remember, give it a good shake. And just slowly pour it onto the spoon and then stop once it's full. If you put a smidgen more on top, it won't matter. And because the extract is quite thick, I actually just wipe it off the spoon. I'm going to just drop the lever down again. And I'm just going to lightly just mix that together a little bit. So at this stage, I'm going to stop. And then I'm going to add gradually the flour. Now, depending on the time of the year, you may find that you don't need to use all the flour. So in winter time, you'll find that the mixture is probably a little bit more stiffer because of the coldness. And you may find you won't need maybe 2 spoons of flour. But in summertime, you will. So I'm just going to lift up the mixture. I'm just going to give it a scrape. And I'm also going to scrape the flour that's all the way up around the sides. Okay, because I want everything incorporated. I don't want the flour to be separate. Always turn the machine off when adding the flour. Okay, don't let it be mixing around. And again, I've only got it on one setting. It's not very fast. And you can see that the dough is starting to form. So make sure you scrape all the yummy mixture back down into the bowl. And then I'm going to add a couple of more spoons of the flour. Now it's starting to form almost like breadcrumbs. And if I have a feel of the dough, I can actually feel it, and it feels quite squidgy, it feels quite wet. So I'm actually going to just use my fingers now. And notice I take all my jewellery off, hands are washed, hair's tied back. But I'm just going to use my fingers now just to pinch that off. And then I'm actually going to just add a couple of spoonfuls of the flour whilst the mixer is actually out. Just going to give that a mix again. And you can see it starting to really form like a dough, almost looks like pastry. And then I'm going to have a quick feel. And it's starting to mould together really quite nice. So I'm just going to add a couple of more spoonfuls of the flour. Okay, so I'm going to take my mixer off. And any bits of mess, just pop them on your tray. And notice I put everything on my trays, so it keeps everything tidy. And I'm just going to pop my hands into the mixture and just give it a scoop around. So any bits of flour or any bits of mixture that's not thoroughly mixed in, but I can see that's really lovely. So that's my dough made, and next I'm going to show you how I ball it up.